In 2017, the oldest person alive at the time, Emma Marano, died at the age of 117. With her death, our last living connection to the 1800s disappeared. And from that moment on, the world was populated entirely by people born in the 20th century. All of us inheriting a past we didn't choose, hurtling forward through time largely without consent to where exactly we're going. So, with each new day that weaves itself into existence, something behind us quietly untethers. And between this tethering and untethering lies one of the oldest paradoxes of humanity, our frantic attempt to hold ourselves together in the face of the most destructive force of change we know, time. Long before the fabled story of Odysseus was helmed together by Christopher Nolan, it was first put together by a poet named Homer at a very peculiar time in Greek history. Now, between the Great Mycenaean Age in which Odysseus allegedly lived and the Archaic period in which Homer recounted the tale lay roughly 300 years of what were the Greek Dark Ages. Now, this was a time when populations declined, once great cities dissolved into small farming villages, literacy and the arts collapsed, pottery and material culture all became much simpler, and monumental architecture stopped altogether. And with all this came a quiet, unsettling question for the people of Homer's generation. Who exactly are we? So Homer drew from oral traditions, stories carried by bards, fragments of myths and memories, all of it at risk of fading into oblivion after centuries without writing. From these pieces, he assembled the tale of Odysseus, a man who belonged to what was already a lost world. Homer's poem is where we, in today's world, get the word Odyssey, meaning a long and difficult journey. But something is missing from this definition, because for both Odysseus and Homer, an Odyssey wasn't just an adventure or a great journey, it was a journey back home. For Odysseus, a 10-year struggle to return to his wife Penelope and his hometown of Ithaca, but for Homer, the Odyssey became his own homeward journey, moving through the scattered remnants of a broken past and piecing together stories, values, and identity to help Greece regain a sense of itself. In his own way, Homer was trying to do what his hero did, find home and unify an identity. It's a little meta, right? But we see this same theme of return of home and identity echoed in countless Odysseys since. Take, for example, Alice's journey through Wonderland, Dorothy's Odyssey through Oz, Chihiro's journey in Spirited Away, and even Bo's nightmarish Odyssey in Bo is Afraid. Totally underrated film, by the way. Thus emerges a common theme of an Odyssey, which is not that they are journeys for mere glory, nor are they quests for victory, they're odysseys for return. A journey that loops back in on itself, returning to where you started, but carrying the weight of what became of you along the way. It's why so many young adults, during the most turbulent years of their life, feel compelled to pack their bags and drain their bank accounts, taking gap years across the world. Not just to see places, but a lot of the time, it's in the hope of coming back home with that little extra sense of security or wholeness. The pain, though, that drove Odysseus forth, along with so many other adventurers since, would later be given a name. In 1688, thousands of years after Odysseus, a Swiss medical student named Johannes Hofer would term this state of mind nostalgia, from the Greek word nostos and algos, quite literally the pain of wanting to return home. Okay, now this is quite a strange definition when we compare it to how it's defined now, and also for what our intuition about nostalgia really tells us. For example, when we watch shows like Stranger Things, listen to songs like Ivy by Frank Ocean, or see a Snapchat reminder from 10 years back. Holy shit. But what I've tried to do here so far is to lay the groundwork for what most of the modern social science research is finding out about an experience that we all share, and for what they suggest is the fundamental reason behind this. Nostalgia isn't just an escape into the past. It's a psychological mechanism that orients us to our journey. imprinted deep into our biology and shaped by the millions of Odysseys that came before our own. A longing for your past in your future. A way of staying anchored to who we are as the world continues to move through us, especially in times of profound change. And it hurts precisely because it works. Now, before going forward, I want to pause for a moment on how memories feel in the first place, because nostalgia isn't just an idea, it's an atmosphere, it's a texture, a way a light hits the room. And that's actually a good place to mention how I build those feelings in this video. So a quick thank you to Storyblocks for sponsoring this video. Videos like this rely heavily on mood, subtle moments, abstract visuals, textures that match the emotional tone of the ideas that I want to convey, and I'm only able to do much of this because of Storyblocks. Storyblocks is a stock media subscription service that gives you unlimited downloads of diverse, high-quality media for one predictable subscription cost. Footage, music, sound effects, images, templates, everything you need all in one spot. And what I love about the unlimited model is that I can experiment freely. I can chase a feeling like nostalgia, download a bunch of clips, and even if it's like a dead end, I can just replace everything until it feels right, without having to worry about individual clip costs or usage limits. Their library is also created by real artists from around the world, so everything feels intentional and authentic. And there is just so much footage that you can get incredibly specific with whatever emotion you're trying to evoke. So if you're a creator or a filmmaker wanting to get started with unlimited stock media downloads at one set price, head over to storyblocks.com/hash or click the link in the description. And thank you again, Storyblocks, for sponsoring this video. Okay, so nostalgia relies on memory, right? And since we'd soon run out of space in our heads if we could record literally everything, memory by necessity becomes a compromise. There's only so much of our present life our brain can afford to carry forward. So by selecting and encoding the right elements of not just what happened, but what it felt like, perhaps we can recreate these moments if we ever need to in our future. This means that a memory works less like a recording or a fixed archive and more like a living, breathing document, one that you reconstruct each time you visit it. And this is what a lot of cognitive science actually points us towards, memory being far more malleable than we would like to admit. Researchers have been able to alter people's memories in controlled settings, change the emotional tone of memories, making sad ones less sad or neutral ones more emotional, and even creating memories that never actually happened. All of this points us towards something that I think is quite unintuitive, that it's not just the past that shapes our future, but our future which also shapes the past. This is why the meaning you derive from your childhood can be very different depending on who you become. An upbringing experienced and remembered as unbearable can later be reinterpreted as formative, and a lot of these interpretations rely on our patterns of thinking, not from past you or future you, but present you. Are you optimistic, pessimistic, cynical, depressed, anxious? Memory and the past are places we visit through the eyes of the present, and so is the future. Nostalgia research reveals this little tidbit a little more clearly than anything else. When researchers asked people to write about nostalgic memories, they noticed something peculiar. The memories written down didn't just linger in the past, people's writing often drifted towards hopeful visions of their future. And this raised an intriguing question of why. And the answer researchers arrived at is that nostalgia's mechanism may have less to do with revisiting where we've been and far more to do with orienting us towards where we're going. Funnily enough, we can actually support this idea with functional MRI scans, where neuroscience shows that remembering the past and imagining the future actually rely on the same brain networks. The same brain networks that imagine our future may be doing so using the Lego blocks of our past. And how it chooses which blocks to play with may depend heavily on your present thinking habits. So given what you know now, what do you think the answer to this question would be? Would the answer have been different before this video? If nostalgia were really all about reminiscing about the past, we'd likely pick old age. Except social science finds that nostalgia becomes especially active during young adulthood, a time with one foot in childhood and another in adulthood. And this may be because nostalgia often presents itself during times of identity change, instability, transition, or even stagnation, when things are moving too fast or not fast enough. What do you want to find when you look into your past? What pieces might you decide to reinterpret, and how would that then shape the future you want to build? The meaning of a memory depends a fair bit on who you are now, your patterns of thinking, your emotional state, and who you're with. You sit around with a group of old loved ones, looking back on your shared pasts together, rinsing those moments of the anxieties that were felt at that time to reveal the real sweet nectar of the moment itself, which can only be held up by the accompanying bitterness that reminds you all of what you've outgrown and the irreversibility of time itself. As Carl Jung would say, it hurts to look back, partially because the psyche notices that something essential has been lost. Whether it's innocence, childhood, or a way of being, we project that longing into the future, where we seek to reunite with that meaning because it offers us a prospect of wholeness. And as renowned nostalgia researcher and author Clay Routledge would say, nostalgia is a unifying force, one that seeks to unify our identity through time, given the destructive force of time itself. We look to the past to bring into the present experiences we want in our future. This is the cyclical nature of humanity we ought to recognize as we march forward into the future. We do so while trying to return to elements of our past, returning home or recreating that feeling of home in our lives. For our children, we prepare nurturing environments, thinking these foundations will help propel them into their own odysseys. But inadvertently, we ought to recognize what's left out of that definition. The ultimate driver for both Odysseus and Homer. We're not only preparing them for their own journey, but giving them a semblance of home, not just to secure their foundation, but to give them an inclination of the kind of feeling they ought to aim for, and the place where they'd ought to return to. Even when the houses we were born into and the faces that held us are long wrinkled, renovated, or gone, we may still be unconsciously searching for them in our movement forward, with the recognition that it was never the smooth skin, young voices, toys, or furniture that made home home, but the feelings in between, the security, comfort, and perhaps even a sense of familiarity much deeper that all brains forever yearn toward. And in our old age, as developmental psychologist Erik Erikson identified, when we arrive at the final stages of life, integrity versus despair, the real odyssey of life, according to Erikson, does not end in whether we have the most memories or accomplishments to retreat into, but whether we have reached a sense of fulfillment, integrity, or wholeness in recreating in our life what we had learned from the very beginning, to lap around to a sense of wholeness to finish our race on, knowing the race will forever continue behind us as we step away at the finish line, watching the new faces arrive in the exact place where we once started.